right. So I'm pleased to introduce Janine Hamner Holman, the founder and president of J&J Consulting, with 30 years experience in organizational development and change management. Her firm specializes in bringing together the latest in brain science and concrete tools to enable organizations to effectively communicate and increase their productivity. Her firm, she's worked with not only Fortune 200 companies and local nonprofits, everything in between as well. She works to support them and their missions. Today, she's going to share with us her insights on how to manage amidst disruption. Please welcome Janine Hamner Holman.
Thank you, Steve. I am trying now to figure out how to restart my video, and folks are still joining. We've got 3 more people who are joining right now. Welcome. There we go, there's me. And are y'all also seeing the screen that says with my logo on it?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, so we got 1 more person joining. We had close to 50 register, and right now we've got about 30 in the group. So maybe let's wait another 30 seconds to make sure that we've got at least the lion's share of folks. I want to echo what Steve said. Thank everybody for being here. I'm super excited to be with y'all today. And as Steve said, he is going to be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions as we're going along, please put them in the chat, and he will be taking care of that for me. We'll talk a little bit more about Steve at the end, but he's awesome and a good friend and a coach, and helped me create this presentation, which we're all going to be sharing in today. So 1 more just joined. So I think it's 11:04. Let's go ahead and start. So what we are going to be talking about today is managing amidst disruption. So as you can see here, I love this little image. You know, we've got all the planes going one way, and then we've got the disruptor. And obviously we're in a specific kind of disruption right now, which we'll talk about. And what we're going to talk about today is good for any kind of disruption that you have going on. So my promises to you for our time today are, we're going to talk about what's different about this current threat and what COVID-19 is creating for us that's really different from any other kind of threat that we've been in. We're going to talk about 3 automatic ways that people are going to want to respond that are really not helpful. So we're going to talk about our opportunity to banish all of those. We've got a couple more people still joining. Welcome. We're going to talk about 5 strategies for managing remote teams. They're also good for managing ourselves if your team is just you, but they're especially good for managing remote teams. And then we're going to talk about 8 quick things that you can do to be more productive, even in this time where it's challenging for us to be productive. And we're going to talk about why that is. At the end, we're going to have some time for questions and answers, and Steve is going to be monitoring the chat. And if there are some questions that would be really good for me to answer in the moment as opposed to at the end, Steve has the authority to interrupt me and get that question answered. Also, as I promised a lot of y'all in the email that went out yesterday, and if you've just signed up, welcome. You are going to have time at the end to book another free session with me for 30 minutes where we can talk about anything that we cover today that you want to delve into more completely. If you've got a question that you don't want to ask in front of the whole group, but that you want to strategize with me about, something that maybe your team is struggling with, you want to learn more about emotional intelligence, which we're going to talk about a little bit today, or anything else, you can book a half hour of my time and I'll give you that URL at the end. So that's a tease to ensure that you stick with us until the end of the presentation today. So I know that y'all really want to get to the strategies and tips for solving some of this shit. I get it. And the problem is we can't generate the results that we can normally generate because of what's going on in this time. And so we need to stop driving for those results. Actually, driving for those results is part of what makes it hard for us to manage right now. So we're going to spend a lot of time on understanding the problem. I promise it's going to be worth it. And you're going to get the recording of this session afterwards, so you can listen to whatever section you want and get more information at that point. So what is different about this threat? So I don't know about y'all, but this is my first global pandemic that I've lived through that's like this. You know, we've been through other kinds of things. We've been through the avian flu and Ebola and Zika, but this is really different. And so we're going to get into why this is different. So it's not just that people are concerned about their personal finances. It's not just that people are concerned about the global financial crisis that we all sort of intuitively feel may be on the other side of this. It's not that we're all concerned about, you know, supply chain or shortages. It does in part have to do with the fact that we are all now super isolated. And, you know, in our houses. It's also really related to the fact that we don't know where this is going to end. We're in this place of massive uncertainty, and we don't know what it's going to look like on the other side. Here's the thing. We are all at choice here. We all have lots of ways to cope with anything that's going on. You can take up day drinking. You can binge watch every series on Netflix and all the Star Trek that have ever been created. You can pull the covers up over your head and eat crackers in bed. And believe you me, there have been days that I've taken advantage of all of those strategies. What we're going to explore over the next hour or so, however, are some slightly more productive strategies. Especially if there are people who are counting on you or just even counting on the money that you create and want to keep creating. So I'm going to geek out for just a second about neuroscience. Do y'all remember that commercial? I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV. So I'm not a neuroscientist, but I play one in my brain. The thing about our brains is that they hate uncertainty. And on this graphic here, you've got the amygdala, which is this teeny little thing. It's way back here in our brain. And that's our reptilian brain. It's the most ancient part of our brain. It's our survival brain. And it's constantly updating the world and making judgments about what's safe and what's not safe. And here's the thing that I find, well, one of the 8 million things that I find super interesting about neuroscience is that uncertainty registers in our brain as pain. And so our brain is going to do anything that it can to create certainty. It's why you will pick a fight with somebody and get exactly the result that you don't want because your brain needs certainty. So if our brain doesn't know what's around the corner, it cannot keep us out of harm's way. And because it assumes by default, our brains are set up to assume the worst case scenario. And we will always assume that we are less capable of dealing with the problem than we actually are. We're hardwired for it, all in the name of survival. So what does our brain do? Our brain makes up stories. It's because of our hatred of the uncertainty that our brain makes up hundreds or even thousands of stories every day to figure out, how is this like something else that I've encountered in the past? Because if it's like this, then I know what to do. The problem is, as I was just talking about, we are always going to go to the worst case scenario. So I'm going to tell you a little story. My husband, who is on this webinar with us, his name is Jonathan, and I love him more than life itself. On Sunday, he woke up and was just having one of those days where he was kind of quiet and maybe a little grumpy. So his energy was really low. Yesterday, I was getting ready to be here with y'all, and my energy was pretty high. I was excited, I was amped up, and we were both having weird reactions to that. And so when we checked in, we figured out that when Jonathan is really quiet, for me, that's the same as he is when he's pissed off at me. And for him, when I'm amped up, that's the same that I am when I'm mad at him. So he and I were both making up stories on Sunday and yesterday that we were each pissed off at each other. And it couldn't have been further from the truth, but that's what the brain does. And so our opportunity is to keep that story that our brain is generating under control and to reality check it. Here's a trick. When we can name something, it takes the edge off. And so so Jonathan and I had this conversation and realized, oh, you seem really up. That's like you are when you're mad. And it took 10 seconds actually in the car yesterday to just get clear about it and clear it up. So one of the things that's tricky about this time is because there's so much uncertainty, we are often at a level of stress. So we can be at normal, and then we can be at fine, and then we can be at good, and then we can be at great, and then we can be at awesome and fabulous and terrific and all the other woohoo stages that we can be of excellence. And then we have 3 levels of stress response. And the challenge with this time is because there's so uncertainty, this is where we're living. The best that we can really do is get back to like, okay and fine, with moments, with like glimpses of joy and happiness. And so I'm going to go into this because it's really important to understand if we are at anything other than okay, or just sort of right into stress level 1, don't be in touch with anybody. Don't be communicating with your team. Don't have a conversation with your spouse. Like, really probably don't go to Trader Joe's because it throws us into stuff. So at threat level 1, the threat is off in the distance. So with us and COVID, that was like the threat was in China. For our reptilian brain, that's this beautiful lion here who looks a little scary. That lion, we can hear him, we can't see him. So the threat's off in the distance. We can get work done at this stage. We're not super creative, but we can get things done. At the next level of threat, though, the threat is in our environment. So at this point, COVID is in the United States. It's probably in your state. Like you can see it. So for our reptilian brain, that lion is now at the top of the hill. We know where it is. Our alert and alarm systems at this point, we are hyper attuned to what's going on in our world. At threat level 3, we can't do anything. So at this point, this is, you have been around somebody in the last week, 10 days, who now has COVID-19. The threat is right here, right now. For your reptilian brain, that lion is charging at you. At this point, we cannot think. Our prefrontal cortex, which is where our thinking actually happens, it's literally shut down. Because in ancient times, when we actually were in spaces where we would encounter lions, we didn't need to think. All we needed to do was scream and run up a tree. So that function is literally not available to you. It's why when we're in that state, we are irrational. We've got crappy judgment. We have knee-jerk reactions. So one of the easiest things to do, if you realize like, oh man, I am in a 3 threat level, I am not thinking. One of my best friends and I are right now taking voice lessons, and we've learned this strategy around air control. So I'm gonna look like an idiot, but that's okay, I'm among friends. So you take a big, deep breath of air, and then you puff out your cheeks like you're a puffer fish. And whoops, sorry, I'm trying to admit somebody else into the room. Welcome to the webinar. So you blow out your cheeks and then you exert air through that little blowfish space. And it helps you calm down. It literally resets your nervous system. It re-engages your prefrontal cortex. So if you're around other people and you can't look like a blowfish, just take a big, deep breath and exhale it slowly. So in this challenging time, I got to get my cursor back. In these challenging times, there are 3 automatic responses that every human is going to have that we really want to banish. So the first one is working ourselves into the ground. When everything is fine, when we're on the scale of fine, good, awesome, great, fabulous, we can more or less work ourselves into the ground. You know, there have been many times that I've looked like this poor girl and she's got 2 cups of coffee by her and is asleep on her chair. The problem is, especially in times of stress and challenge and uncertainty, we've got to have something in the tank in order to have resilience. So we don't get to work ourselves into the ground right now. The second auto response that we're all going to want to have is driving for results. I got to get shit done. And I have this gift of time, or a lot of us have this gift of time right now. And so we feel even more like we need to be getting some stuff done. We need to be accomplishing the big things that we're up to accomplishing in the world. It's the perfect time to write that book. Here's the problem. It's not, because of what I was just talking about with our brain, and we're going to get into all of that again a little bit more. This is the time for deep connection and empathy. And here's the thing, if you are managing a team of people, when people feel connected and they feel seen and gotten, that's when their natural motivation is going to kick in, and they're going to want to do the very best that they can for you, which right now is less than normal, but they're gonna do their very best. And honestly, that's all that we can ask from ourselves and our people. Our third automatic response that we are gonna wanna banish is do everything and do it faster. And man, I don't know about y'all, I am such a culprit in this. I set out these huge to-do lists and then work on getting everything done. Because we are in this perpetual state of uncertainty, we are actually incapable of normal. We cannot be at our normal level of productiveness. So at this point in time, we get to focus on the essentials, what's really critical, and do it good enough. Right now, it doesn't have to be perfect unless you're a brain scientist, in which case it does. But if you're not doing open heart surgery, it doesn't have to be perfect. Go for a B, go for a B minus, go for a C plus, because in reality, for most of us at most times, that's the best that we can do. So there are 3 things that we all need, and 2 other things that are super helpful when we are in this state of perpetual uncertainty. So the first thing that we need is certainty. So the more certainty we can create, the better we will do. And I pulled this graphic off of an article on COVID-19 and psychology. You may agree with some of the things that are in the green or in the yellow. You may not agree with them. I don't really care. The point is to focus on the things that create certainty for you. For each of us, it's different. And if you're managing a team, you want to get clear on what helps create certainty for your team, for your kids, for your spouse, for other people living in your house. One thing that we all want to do, and that's really counterproductive, is spend endless hours on media and news intake. It's supernatural, and it's our brain's desire for certainty that's driving it. Our brain thinks more information will equal certainty. The problem is right now it's just not true. Going into the sort of CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, whatever your flavor is, going into that hole of information just feeds the uncertainty, and it's super unhelpful for our brains right now. You want to make sure that if big things happen, you know about it. So create a buddy system with someone else who can't separate themselves from all the news, or create alerts on your phone, or do whatever you need to do to be in the know if something big happens, and then limit your intake. One of the things that I love that's on this graphic is at the bottom of the green: kindness and compassion. It's within our control, and we get to strengthen this muscle right now. It's super helpful in this time. It's helpful for us, and it's helpful for our teams. The second thing that we need is autonomy. So for all you micromanagers out there, here is your ready-made opportunity to break your micromanaging habit and knock that shit off. People need autonomy, and we especially need it in the face of disruption and uncertainty. Because, however, our brains are in this perpetual state of uncertainty, we can't expect that much. And I'm going to talk in a minute about breaking down tasks, and I'm going to tee that up right here. We need autonomy, and when we're in a constant state of anxiety, we are generally incapable of complex tasks. So we get to make it as easy as possible for everyone, including ourselves. And if we're in a threat state, it is totally cool to get to throw yourself a little mini kitchen party when remembering that making pasta begins with boiling salted water, never oil, After 7.5 years with my husband watching competitive cooking shows, I have absorbed that piece of wisdom. And right now, I may get to throw myself a little party for remembering it. The third thing that we need is relatedness. We're all feeling isolated and scared and sad. I have never been on such an emotional roller coaster often before my first cup of coffee in the morning. One of the best ways to get from a state of anxiety back to being okay, or from an emotional roller coaster back to being okay, is by being related to other people. If you're managing a team, you want to connect with them. Okay, gotta go back to clicking. You want to connect with them about what relatedness looks like to them. And it's smart right now to be in communication with our people every day. You want to make sure that you see the face of somebody outside of your house every day, and not just the people at the grocery store. That doesn't happen. That doesn't help, especially right now, because all we can see are their eyes. And so you can't see if they're smiling at you. You can't see if they're connected to you. Maybe a week, maybe a little more after the Safer at Home started, I had a Zoom call with one of my business partners, who I think is on this today. Hey, Kristen. And when I saw her face, I literally wanted to cry. I got a lump in my throat. That feeling of connection with somebody outside of my house, I missed it so much, and I was so happy to see her. So you want to figure out how to see faces of people that you know and love and are connected to. Doesn't matter if you work with them, if you're friends with them. If you work with them, you really want to figure out ways to be connected. And, see people's faces. Zoom, FaceTime, Skype, whatever things you like, whatever platforms you like. So those are the three things that we need. And there's two other things that are super helpful. Humor. When I found this slide, I cracked up. Laughter is a symbol of hope, and it becomes one of our greatest needs in life in a crisis, right up there with toilet paper. It actually gets our brains to relax. It literally brings us back from the edge. So be silly. Watch funny movies. Listen to funny books. If you're somebody like me and my mom who can read a book and laugh out loud, do that. Watch cat videos or babies and puppies or whatever makes you laugh out loud. Because that old adage, laughter is the best medicine, it's actually true. It relaxes our whole body. It releases endorphins that promote a sense of well-being. It literally boosts our immune system and decreases our stress hormones. And I don't know about y'all, I need both of those things right now. The other thing that we get to do is check our perspective. So this is back to that story that we create. The thing that we can always control is our interpretation or our meaning of that story. So you drive by, not right now, but you drive by a church and you see people outside and they're crying. Is it a funeral or is it a wedding? It's all about our interpretation and the meaning in the story that we create. And so we get to really check in on that. I'm going to give you now 5 strategies for managing teams, which is, as I said, can also be great for managing yourself, but this is really about managing teams of other people, even if they're just the other people in your house. The first thing that you want to do is you want to create planned check-ins. So if you're managing a team of people, you want to check in with them, as I said, at least once a day. And the thing that I am loving that some folks are doing right now is they're doing a 15-minute huddle in the morning. One thing I got done yesterday, one thing I need help with today, and then they're doing a 30-minute check-in at the end of the day, one thing I got done today. I think that system is great, and it creates certainty and it creates relatedness, because you know when it's going to happen and you have an opportunity to connect with these people. The second thing that you want to do is you want to set clear, manageable expectations. I love this little dude. Here's where we're going, right up there. And this again creates certainty and it creates autonomy. Okay, I'm with you. I'm going up there with you and I'm clear about where we are. I'm going to do a 20-second off-road here. A lot of managers aren't very clear about their expectations. And so this is an awesome time to reset with your team and check in about the things that you're awesome at and the things that maybe you get to grow in. So check in with your team about, in general, how do you do with expectations, with being clear? Are you clear with them about what you expect? And if you're not, this is a great time to work on it. As we were talking about before, because of the level of uncertainty that we're in, we can't manage a lot right now. So we get to break down our tasks step by step. Maybe it used to be that you were able to say to one of your team members, hey, here's this great big thing, get this done. In general, you're not going to be able to do that right now. And so you want to step it down with them. This is also one of those times when more brains are better than one. So you might want to get your whole team together, figure out your whole task, and then break it down and figure out who's accountable for what. And then we want to track it. So I don't care how you track it, make it visible. This is a Gantt chart. I think that's a great tool. It doesn't matter what, you can do it on a piece of paper. Here's the thing that we're doing. Here's all of its pieces. Here's when they get done by. Here's who's accountable for what. And you want to make it something that really you're checking in with your people on. The last thing that I want to talk about is we are in this time where it is more important than ever to really understand what's going on in the lives of your people. It didn't used to matter whether a staff member was living by themselves or living in a house with 18 other people. It matters now. If they're living by themselves, it's super likely that they are feeling more isolated, more lonely. It's going to have an impact on how they're doing. If they're living in a house with 18 people, it's likely that some of them are kids and now they're homeschooling. They may be managing parents who are at home. They may be managing lots of other things. And so we have an opportunity to get really related to our team. You want to look then for the possibility of reallocating work, because it may be that one of your superstars has a lot going on right now, either internally or in their environment, and they need some help. And it may be that somebody who was less of a performer can really step up and shine right now. And you want to look for those possibilities to reallocate depending upon what's going on with your team. Something that's going to really empower you to do this is emotional intelligence. So I'm going to take a quick sip of water. Emotional intelligence is something that people started talking about 30 years ago. And what happened was they had these folks who were scoring super high on IQ tests, but then weren't doing so great at life. And then they had these other folks who, not so smart on the IQ test, but man, they were killing it at life. And so they started thinking about, is there another kind of intelligence at play here? And what is there is another kind of intelligence. It's called emotional. It's called emotional intelligence. And it's often what people refer to as the soft skills. I hate that title. Honestly, there's nothing soft about critical thinking and communication and persuasion, problem solving, teamwork. These are superpowers. These are the skills that have other people want to be with us, do business with us, and have them keep coming back. The hard truth about the soft skills is that we don't teach people how to be great at this. I do. And so if you're interested in that, we can talk about that. Book time with me. We can talk about how you can get better at this. But this screen here on the left, or this graphic here on the left, this is what's possible for you if you take on emotional intelligence. So less stress, rock on, better decision making, reduced staff turnover, better leadership ability. So this is the time to take this on. And these are the things that are possible to you when you do. The organizations that don't have a culture around this, these are the organizations where the great people leave, and the people who are left are the people that don't value these things, are always saying, well, but that's how we always did it, are the people who are attached to the way that we always got things done and aren't interested in change or rising to new challenges. Emotional intelligence is the key to break through that. So I'm going to end today with giving you 8 productivity tips of how these are really about how we can manage ourselves better. The first thing that you want to do is create agreements with your people, whoever your people are. If they're little people, if they're big people, if they're furry people, you want to create agreements about how things are going to go during this time. The second thing that you want to do is you want to figure out your workspace. And this is one of those things that maybe you figured it out a couple of weeks ago and it's not working so great. So my husband and I had thought that it was going to be great, fine for us to both work in the same office. We have a home office and we thought we could figure it out and we could both work in here all the time right now. We can't. We can sometimes, and other times I'm out at the dining room table or he's in the living room. We're having to figure it out. I love this graphic on the left. Mom is in a meeting. And part of what I love about it is there's a clear time. Mom is in a meeting between 9:30 and 11. And if you have questions, the answers to them might be these things that are very funny. The blue thing, that is a presentation trifold. What I love about that is you can grab a cardboard box and put cuts in it and create this kind of thing, which then you would just put around your computer like a do not disturb. And all that means is to the other people in your space right now, Mom is in a meeting. I'm working. And you could, put a little post-it on the outside of it, what the time frame is and when you're going to be available again. You can have your kids decorate it, you can make it into a fun project, whatever. But you want to figure out your workspace where you can get work done uninterrupted. Because there will be times when you're not at threat level 3 or 2, where you're at 1 or okay, or even pretty good, and now I'm feeling creative. You want to have that space where you are uninterrupted and can get things done. You want to create a schedule for your crew, whoever that is who's in your space, and you want to keep it as close to normal as possible. So I have a good friend who has 3 boys. The oldest normally would be away at college. He's back home. The middle one, he should be going to college next year. We'll see. The youngest one is still in grade school. And when all this started happening and he came home and then it was clear they weren't going back to school, and so we got to create a routine. Mom asked the youngest one to create a schedule for the team. And so he created a schedule that had, you know, get up, make my bed, eat breakfast, and then 1 hour of school time, and then 7 hours playing on the computer with friends. And he tried to pitch this to Mom, that this was, you know, collaborative and teamwork and socialization time. Mom didn't buy it. But what was great is then she got everybody, the kids and Mom and Dad together, and they talked about it. And then the youngest one still had the autonomy. He was still in charge of the schedule. He went back, took another stab at it. Still didn't quite get it right, because, you know, we're not on vacation. We're still getting stuff done to the extent that we can. And so, but eventually they created a schedule that worked for everybody. Which brings me to block your time. Here's another time when I get to tell the truth about myself. I suck at this. I'm so bad. And I know that it works, because when I do it, it works for me and I love it. It's kind of like going to the gym. I have a hard time getting myself into the routine. And then once I'm there, I love it. So you want to use whatever tools you're accustomed to using, whether you use a computer calendar or a paper calendar or just a piece of paper. You want to block your time out into as small increments as you can that make sense. And you want to schedule in breaks. I love these two pictures. The kitty looks like my cat. This is not what my dog looks like, but it cracks me up. And our furry people are way better than we are at taking breaks and chilling out. And it's super important right now. Our brain needs breaks, and we need more breaks probably than we normally do. So put them in your calendar. I love this construct of moving from a to-do, D-O, to a do, D-U-E. And I like it because, I don't know about y'all, but when I create a to-do list, it's long and it has everything on it. It's got my husband's honeydews, it's got all the things. And so I don't often get that satisfaction of crossing things off of it. And right now, in this time when there's so much uncertainty, that feeling of getting some things done is super important. And so creating a to-do list with due dates, so that then you know, these are the things that would be great for me to get done today. These are the things for tomorrow. These are the things for next week. Then that helps you put some parameters around what you're trying to get done. Speaking of things we're trying to get done, a daily must complete goal, just one thing that really you need to get this done today. It doesn't matter if it's going to Trader Joe's or getting a big project done for work. One thing that you need to get done today that you accomplish, man, that's going to create certainty. It's going to create autonomy, and then you're going to be able to tell somebody about it, and it's going to create relatedness. So that having one thing that we get done creates all those things that we need. The last thing that we get to do that increases our productivity is we get to be gentle with ourselves and our team. I love this graphic. You got to nourish to flourish. If we don't take care of ourselves, we don't have anything to give. And back to that resilience, we need stuff in our tank right now, especially because of the uncertainty that we're all dealing with. So self-care is something that's been talked about much more intensely for the last couple of years, and it's off the charts right now, people talking about self-care, because we need it in this time of uncertainty. We need it all the time because there's always stress and there's always uncertainty. But the level of stress and uncertainty that we're living with now means we get to be extra gentle with ourselves and our team. I'm gonna pause here for just a second. I picked this graphic because I used to row crew. I was that very first person, not the coxswain, who's the one steering the boat, who's facing the rowers, but the very first rower who's called the stroke. That was me when I used to row, and I love this. You know, we're always talking about getting our team rowing in the same direction. So figure out what we can control, stay together, get manageable things done, stay safe, and be as well as we can in this time. If you want some more time with me, as I said, I have opened up about 10 slots in my calendar. And so you can go onto this Calendly link, Calendly, me, webinar, consulting, and book time with me, book 30 minutes, and we can talk about anything that you would like. So,
Janine,
do we have any questions?
We do have questions. Nicole has a great question. When you were talking earlier about needing to break down tasks and track progress, how do you reconcile that with that notion of not wanting to micromanage and assuring autonomy for everybody? So you know, you break down the tasks, but you don't want to be a micromanager. Can you speak to that?
Great question. Great question, Nicole. Thanks, Steve. So what we want to do is do that together. So we want to be with our team to figure out what are the component parts of that task. So you're not saying to your team, okay, here are the component parts, and now you do this and you do that. You're doing it together and you're strategizing, okay, so how can we break this down into stuff that's manageable? And y'all are all gonna have this video. Feel free to share this video with your team if that would be helpful, so that you can all think together about, all right, so what is my capacity? You can use that shorthand. I'm in threat level 2. I got to get back to level 1. How can we do that together? This is more of a task than I can manage in my little brain right now. You know, we get to be vulnerable at that level. And this is a great time to practice that kind of vulnerability.
And if anyone else has a question, go ahead and unmute yourself and you go ahead and ask it directly. We didn't get that many during the chat section, so go ahead and do that right now if you'd like. I just want to throw my 2 cents in here, Janine, and say how this is, it's allegedly managing amidst disruption, but it seemed to me that the person I should be managing is myself through all this. So this is something that if you're not managing a team directly, just taking these things on yourself and self-managing, it's very applicable.
Absolutely. Thanks. All right, so I'm going to give you all another second or two to think if you've got any extra questions. While you're thinking about that, I want to say thanks to everyone for being here today. And I really want to thank Steve Domeyer. So Steve has been my partner in this today, has helped me run this webinar, but he and I also had several sessions before this webinar on making it great, making it more effective. And that's one of Steve's superpowers. He is a terrific resource. And if you have a message that you want to communicate and you want to communicate it better, Steve will make it better. So check him out at stevedomeyer.com.
Thank you for that. We do have other questions coming in
Great.
now. Let's see. How do we find out more about emotional intelligence other than Google?
Yeah, the Google is great for that. I am also a resource for that. I am trained in emotional intelligence. So I would be happy, book some time with me. I'd be happy to talk to you about what that would look like. Understanding your own emotional intelligence starts with understanding where you are really strong and where you're not so strong, and then leaning into those places where you're strong and getting better at the places where you could use some support.
Terrific. Anybody else have anything they want to jump in and say Audio wise, you're all just bailing. You don't want to be seen on camera. Have your papers.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here today. I've really enjoyed being here with y'all. And as I said, everyone will get the recording. We'll send that out. And if you registered late, everyone yesterday got a few extra resources that I've been pulling together that some folks have been asking for. So I will be emailing those out to anybody who joined late, who registered late. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great rest of your day.